Welcome back to another Better Decisions podcast. My name is David Siddons, as always the host, and today I have an unusual guest. I've got Alvaro Nuñez. Now, Alvaro, thank you for coming in to do this.
Thank you.
Probably recognize him. He may look familiar to you, and there's probably good reason. So, Alvaro, you are annoyingly successful. You've done a lot. It actually kind of blows my mind. You're 30 years old. You were a tennis player, professional tennis player, on your way to, levels, and then obviously life took another turn. You're a pilot. You have a pilot's license. Mm-hmm. You're an influencer. I mean, well known. If you recognize him, you've got a million followers online. You're an author of a book, Level Up.
Here it is.
Yeah, Level, which is a fantastic book, which is all about how you kind of bring out your best. And I want to, explain. You can explain that. In fact, while we're on that, I'm going to say Ultraman athlete. You've done the world's hardest race, global traveler, and real estate broker. Well, you run a real estate business, so I'm going to frame it as a real estate broker because that's a little bit more complex than that, and we'll get into it. This is a real estate podcast. I mean, Better Decisions is based off my business, which is, being a real estate broker, running a team down here in South Florida. But it's kind of evolved more into just the human curiosity of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what's fun and what's engaging and what we can learn from, and how ultimately, being true to the title, how we can make better decisions. So that, putting that out the way, just obviously take a few minutes to tell us a little bit about who you are, and obviously with the book here, Level Up, because that's something that that you wrote. How long ago did you write that book?
Year and a half, I would say, or 14 months.
How long did it take you to write?
I mean, you want the short answer? Or?
No, I want the real answer. I want
my
the
whole
honest,
life.
your whole life.
Yeah, because it's a combination of everything that I've been through in my entire life and all the lessons in between, and hopefully in something that people will take into their own lives and get empowered to reach their ultimate potential.
When did you make the conscious decision to say, I'm going to write a book?
To be honest, it was at the top of the Mount Kilimanjaro.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not like, you could say, I was just getting a Starbucks one day, but okay.
But there is maybe a reason, because there was lack of oxygen. So I don't know if I was just like getting a little bit like hallucinating or not. But I said at the top of the mountain, I said, you know what? I'm writing a book.
So how does that happen? Like, you're going up a mountain, because I'm trying to unravel your brain in that process. So you're going up this mountain, and not a mountain, you're going up Kilimanjaro, one of the highest peaks in the world, and one of the toughest challenges. And you're going up this mountain, and then it's at the top that you do. And how does it come into your head? Like, talk me through that synaptic process.
Well, I think it's the journey, right? So I call it more an expedition rather than an expedition. I was doing this with a friend of mine called Sean Swarner, who is an incredible individual. He's done accomplishments that it will blow your mind away. But just so you know, on the process of getting to the top of the mountain, you get to know yourself to a deeper level. So I was realizing that a lot of the dots started to make sense and connect, is what Steve Jobs said, right? It only makes sense when you connect the dots looking backwards. Yeah. So I realized that my life was like in a direction that will really empower other people to take on similar actions to become their best version. So I said, you know what? I have an interesting story. I'm going to write a book. And when I was at the top, I don't know if it was the lack of oxygen or just the excitement of being there, that I said, whatever the case, I'm going to start.
And did you have a clarity in your mind of how the book was going to come together, what it was going to be about, and what the fundamental story was, and even the title, Level Up?
Well, that's an interesting story, because I kind of had an idea on how I wanted to talk about the storyline, because it's my life, right? It's just a way of sharing what I've been going through and the lessons in between. So I kind of had an idea on the chapters on how I wanted to do it. The title whatsoever, had no clue. And it was funny because when I was done with the book, I still didn't have a title. In fact, I know a lot of people that wrote a book and they start off by knowing already the title. In fact, I have friends of mine that said, oh, I'm going to write a book. I already know how I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it this, Y, Z. It's like, okay, great. For me, it was the opposite. I actually didn't have a title until the very end. So I finished the book and I said, how am I going to name this book? So I tried to do what Thomas Edison did, right? So which is laying on this sofa and he had a metal ball. So by the time that he will fall asleep, he will drop that ball and it will wake him up. And it's in that moment when you're in that state of mind that you get the most creative ideas. And that's how he was getting all these ideas. So I said, this is very interesting. I'm going to do the same thing. So I went on and read the entire book from A to Z right before going to sleep. And I know more or less how long it takes me to wake up. So I put that little alarm 5 minutes after I was in bed. And then I woke up and I said, oh my God, level up. My girlfriend was taking a bath and I went straight to the bathroom screaming, I got it, level up, level up. And she's like, oh my God, genius.
That was like your eureka moment.
Yeah, so it was fun.
That's interesting. It's interesting how you use certain strategies. And again, this is actually one of the questions. I'm not going to jump ahead yet because I want to leave it till we get into the meat of the podcast, is the habits that you have and things that you do, because it's very interesting to see how you manage your life and what you do with especially given so much that you do. So with the title Level Up, just for those who don't know, just give us the essence of what the book is about, what the story is about, and why it is Level Up.
Yes, the subtitle is actually turning your obstacles into superpowers. I do believe that a lot of people have dreamt at some point of doing or reaching something in life, and then they get derailed because of the obstacles. And some people don't even dream whatsoever. So this is about getting again into this hero's journey. It's about becoming the hero of your own story, being the main character, and being able to go through that journey knowing that whatever obstacles you're going to face, you can turn them into obstacles, into superpowers. And this is what this is about, really. Yeah. A lot of people relate to those difficult moments. Not a lot of people will relate to the victories, right? So this is a raw version of really all the things that I've been going through. Because if people just look at what is going on social media, they'll be, okay, this guy is living the dream. This is very far out from where I am today. So I don't understand how I can get to that level. So the storyline is really how all those obstacles that came through my life helped me turn those into superpowers and be who I am today.
Yeah, I was listening to other podcasts and looking at your story and reading about you online and seeing the obstacles that you had, and obviously, breaking your foot as a 16-year-old at a school to play tennis, getting a scholarship. Or I think breaking your foot after 2 months of being at school, and then losing the scholarship, and then having to be like a janitor around the school. And then obviously having to deal with the adversities of then, moving off the tennis route as your dream was to be a professional tennis player. And then obviously having to move into a different direction. So obviously the challenges that you've got, and you seem to be pretty good at sticking challenges in front of you. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, okay, so what am I gonna F up today in my life and make a challenge for myself? With that in mind, doing the Ultraman races. I mean, this is crazy. I like to think that I'm a pretty fit guy. And I've been working out for a long time, doing a lot of different sports, and obviously having worked at IMG. But you not only do the Ultraman races, and I know actually, you were going to come on the show a couple of weeks ago, but then obviously you just done the Ultraman, and you're like, I got a bit of an eye, infection. And I was like, an eye infection? What about the rest of your body? I mean, I'd be a wreck, knees, back, everything. But then you did the world's hardest race, which is really insane. I mean, that's nuts. I've seen some crazy things. That's 6 back-to-back marathons, and then you decided to put a 45-pound plate on your back.
Well, yeah.
Well, not saying. Explain that a little bit, because that's kind of wild.
I mean, look, we go back to the same thing. You were a professional athlete. I was trying to become one in tennis, and I ended up coming to the States with a scholarship, and things got derailed. As you mentioned, I got a broken foot, so I had to rediscover myself. And instead of going back to the comfort zone of being in Spain with my family, I knew why I was in the States. I was trying to build that American dream. So I had to find an alternative route. And in this case was, okay, if I'm not physically able to compete and I'm going to lose that type of scholarship, let me go and become the best student so that I can get those academic scholarships. And on the meantime, let me also get some additional income by working as whatever it is available. In this case, it was a janitor, picking up trash, cutting grass. So it was a very humbling experience. It builds character, right? Because a lot of people talk about your why, which I had it. That's why I was able to stay put in the States rather than go back to the comfort zone. So that's my why. My why was to become the person that could support my family back home, because we were going through a financial crisis and the situation was very difficult back home. So I had a clear purpose. However, the how you become that person is what builds your character. So that's the journey, right? And there's a lot of things in between there. However, the character that you build from all those different obstacles, and that's just a minor obstacle in comparison to everything that happened afterwards. But that's the character that has been carried throughout all the years, so that now every time I look at my life, I don't like to stay in comfort, because I have a lot of friends that have reached massive success and they live in comfort, yet they're unfulfilled. Why? Because they lack of purpose. So I want to always have a purpose beyond myself. So every time I embrace those new challenges, I do it for the sake of, yes, pushing myself to become a better version, but also to attach it to a strong why. In this case, the one that I did last year, which was the Marathon des Sables, is considered the toughest foot race in the world for a reason.
Yes.
It's 6 marathons in 6 days across the Sahara Desert, and you need to carry all your food and supplies. So while you're doing that, you're going to be facing a lot of obstacles. So you need to attach a strong why, so that every time that you want to quit, whether it's training through that process or while you are at the race, that you will always remind yourself why you are there. So for me, I had a circle of friends and family members that have been suffering with depression, and some of them are no longer here with us. So I wanted to raise the voice of those that were struggling with depression. So that's why I was carrying a weight on top of it that said the weight of depression. It was a symbol that was representing all the struggles that so many people were carrying inside. Because one of the things that we find out in our society is that the stigma of saying what you're feeling might make you look as a weaker man or a weaker woman, when in reality, it's not even close to that. So I wanted to raise that voice by doing this campaign, and I was on TVs, podcasts, and so on. So hundreds of people shared the story. It was very, very powerful. So the idea was to carry this weight throughout the Sahara Desert, and then at the end, bury it in the sand. Yep. So I had a lot of moments throughout that process where I wanted to quit, but having that strong why is what kept me going.
Highly emotional. I mean, it's a highly emotional process that you're going through. And obviously it's bigger than you. And I think, look, I applaud you. I mean, congratulations. I mean, it's something that, you're I call it a messenger, but you're a conduit, a pass through for something bigger. And so, I guess it feels like a privilege. It's a great story. It's a great story. It's very inspiring. It makes me think of, as we get into this process, now you still do so many things. I mean, you travel the world, you see so many things going on, you're so connected to so many different people in such a detailed and personal way, which is really, it's got to be the most fulfilling thing in the world. Human connection is everything. And you've clearly sought that out. You've clearly sought out that value of human connection with real purpose, and not just for what it can give you, but for what you can give and how it can help everyone grow and move forward. And as you talk about, and I did read that story. I was very interested when I'd seen the videos, seen the pictures, seen the the welts and bleeding on your back, the burying of a 45-pound plate. Mark no words. If you don't know, you lift up a 45-pound plate. You might say, okay, I can lift this, but stick it on your back and walk around with it. Even just go for a walk for half an hour on your back with a weighted vest. You'll feel it. You're conscious that there's something on you, and it's going to affect your breathing. It's going to affect your muscles in a different way, the way you balance, your coordination, your stabilization. Everything kind of gets altered. You're working in an altered state. So I think it's just an incredible story. But it's interesting because when you talk about the process of depression and psychologically the pressures that we live in a society where we're sitting here, we're doing a podcast. Again, my podcast is real estate related, so I'm going to get into that. We're in an area where it's very much impression based. You're on Instagram, you've got a huge following. People will judge from the immediacy of, there you are, tall, good looking guy, young guy, travels the world, great life, everything's perfect. But we all know that the reality of everyone's life is what they see and what you feel when you're at home in the quiet of your own space is not the same. Do you ever get like, you know, what they call imposter syndrome, where you're like, do I deserve this? Is this me? Or are you always like, just, you've got the direction?
You know, it's a good question. And actually, I talk about it in the book. I had imposter syndrome for many, many years. And it took me now recent years to develop a different mindset to know that, no, I deserve to be here.
Yeah.
But through the process, we can go more in depth into my story in that regards, but I was working with really amazing clientele all around the world, renting some of the most amazing luxury villas. And guess what? When you organize those sorts of arrangements, not just renting the villa, but everything else that goes with it, whether it's a private jet or the yacht or the luxury cars or the experience of the restaurants, when you're a young guy full of energy, wanting to help, super positive, people want that energy. I always say energy is the current currency for personal and professional success. I didn't know that many people. I didn't know that many things. So I had to just, whatever I was lacking on everything else, bring it on by having the most amazing energy possible. And that's what's going to attract the amazing things to your life. Yeah. So I was being attracted into this circle that I was serving. So all of a sudden I see myself getting invited to be on a private jet and being at an amazing villa and having access to all these things. And then the next week I was sleeping at a couch. And all the money that I was making, I was reinvesting it on trying to keep up with that lifestyle while also investing on the business. So I was fighting these two sides of the coin of, should I just quit altogether because I don't deserve to be there yet? Or should I embrace it and just go through the hurdles? Because for me, sometimes I wanted to take care of some clients when I was inviting them to dinner, and all the savings that I was having, I was putting them to pay for a bill of food. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, what am I doing? And through that process, you learn something, which is completely honesty. That's something that every day when I wake up, I go through my gratitude list, I go through my vision, why, and values. The values is one of the most important things, because the values is just a reminder of what matters to you and how you act for the rest of your life.
I want to go into that, but I don't want to go into that yet, because that's part of like your habits, your rituals, and the things that you do every day. I want to go obviously into your real estate story, because this is, you know, the focus of our business. But I want to, before we go into that, I want to finalize it. I hear what you're saying, and I always say, look, if you're going to screw up spectacularly. If you're going to do it, commit the whole way. Exactly. And you always get taught, especially within the sports world, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Like, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Whatever you do, it's poison. I know you might think, you know, don't believe when everyone says you're great that you're great, because you're not as great as you think you are. And the reality is that pride comes before a fall. But at the same time, allow yourself to enjoy the moments too. Enjoy it. Be in the moment. Be present. Yeah. Because it's very easy. My wife tells me this all the time. She's like, you know, in my team around me, we do a big deal and we always laugh, because she's like, are you going to celebrate? And I'm like, nope, got work to do. You know, there's a mountain to climb. And they're like, but look how high you came. And I'm like, yeah, but look how far I've still got to go. But sometimes you got to, you know, celebrate the little wins. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. So the real estate business, because real estate, and again, as we do this, and this is a fun process for me. This is like, we talk about what business is like every day. Right now I'm sitting here and I'm enjoying myself. This to me is fun. This is enjoyable. This is a great moment. I get to relax, have fun with a really interesting, cool person, and learn some cool stuff and share some stories. But, you know, the rest of the time I'm negotiating deals. I'm dealing with my team. I'm having to look at contracts. I'm preparing for new listings, closing out other listings, and there's a million things going on every day. And 90% of them are not sexy. It's just, you know, it's hard work. You just got to embrace the work. But the real estate business, aside from how the media portrays it, the reality of it, what made you want to get into it? And I know there's a little bit of story with your dad being a developer. Yeah. But once you get into it, how did it all change and evolve? Because it's clearly changed and evolved for you and become something different to what it is for so many other people who sell real estate in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we all go through different journeys, right? My journey might be different than yours, but at the end of the day, we are all here doing real estate. So what is different from the approach that I took to get into real estate is that I realized at a young age, when I was 22 years old, I was having a team of 100 people, and I was the director of operations for this marketing company, that I thought I was living the American dream. I loved marketing. I reached the position that I wanted and I dreamt of. I was doing everything that I thought I was to do. I was making good money. I was literally having everything that I envisioned when I first moved to the US. And what happens in situations like that is that you get caught up too much with the routine of every single day working. And that became my obsession. 22 years old, I didn't care about anything else. It was just work. And I embraced, like you mentioned, I embraced the work. But then what happened in that process is that when they offered me the work visa, because I was an international student that just graduated from my master's, so I had 1 year to stay in the country. So I had to prove that company that I was worth the investment of them giving me that work visa. So I proved that. I worked towards that. And when I finally got it, and now they were sponsoring me with that visa, there is a process. And that process is a lottery. You not get a work visa just because they're giving you one. You need to pass the lottery and then review the case. I didn't even pass the lottery. So all of a sudden, from one day to another, my lawyer calls me and says, Alvaro, you didn't pass the lottery. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get the visa. So I had to tell that to my boss, the owner of the company. And he said, well, unfortunately, in that case, we cannot keep you here. So from one day to another, I had to leave the country. And what happens in that scenario is that you get that wake-up call. And the wake-up call is that I no longer was doing something that I was enjoying. I started to look into it as, wow, I put all that effort into work, and I really didn't care a lot on these other areas. And it's the first time that I looked into the wheel of life. And the wheel of life is divided into different areas: your career, your finances, your relationships, your physical and health, your intelligence, your spiritually. And for me, I realized at that moment, wow, this is an opportunity. Again, an obstacle, you can turn it into your superpower. This was an opportunity for me to then ask myself for the first time ever, what do I really want? What do I really want in life? But in a real deep way, by having that wheel of life in front of me. And then I started to look into the things that I was passionate about. I said, okay, what am I passionate about? And not a lot of people have passions towards things in life. Yeah. You need to be curious to then do things. And when you do things, then you'll realize what you enjoy and what you don't. But at least at 22 years old, 23 years old, I had already certain passions. And those passions include traveling. I really enjoyed experiences. I enjoyed connecting with people. I enjoyed marketing. And I enjoyed real estate. Why? Because my father was an architect and a developer. My mom was doing real estate. My sister was an architect. My brother was an engineer. So I grew up with homes around me. I didn't go that direction because I went to the States, but there was that sort of passion towards homes in me. So in that moment, it was about combining all those different elements and put them into this mixer and see what's going to be the best formula to put all these things together and do something with it. And if I go down at least doing something that I love.
You do it on your terms.
Yeah, because everybody was going to try to push you towards the comfort zone. Everybody's like, oh, no worries, Alvaro, go back to Spain. You can go back to Spain. You can be there with your family. You can be there getting an easy job. You'll be fine. You just came from the States, having an amazing job, amazing education. You are settled. You're good. But that's it. That's the problem. Going into comfort zone is not what's going to make you grow. And this is when we're talking about the better decisions, right? Yeah. The decision was not to go towards what's comfortable and what's given to you. It's about going into what scares you. I always say fear begins on the other side of fear.
And you know, it's funny because comfortable, what's comfortable can become uncomfortable very damn quickly. As soon as you get bored with it and realize you can do something, you're no longer growing. There's no growth there. And then that happens, then you've got an itch you've got to scratch. And you've got to get out of that position. Because a lot of people do, they get caught in the cycle, and it's like they get caught by, I'm making money. And then their why becomes making money, and it's like, why am I, it's like the Simon Sinek, why am I even doing this? So you, as I read your story, you ended up in DR, the family went to DR, so you left the US, you went to DR, and then you started selling real estate, starting getting into real estate in DR. How did it even happen? Like, I'm trying to understand the exact processes. You got licensed, and then how did it kind of move from there?
Look, as I mentioned, life begins on the other side of fear. So for me, it was about taking the choice, making that decision that I was afraid of doing, which was going into the unknown. I didn't even know anything about Dominican Republic, but it was just right there where my parents recently moved in there. Everybody else was in Spain. But my parents, because of the situation in Spain, they decided also to live and take that leap of faith. So I said, okay, let's all go there together. Now, when my parents moved in there, my mom was selling real estate, and she sold a house to a guy from Spain that when he bought it, he said, look, I'm not going to use this house more than twice a year. So could you please help me rent it short term? And my mom was not doing any rentals. She was just focusing on the sales. So she asked me, it's like, Alvaro, you are the marketing genius. You come from the States. You've been doing marketing. Why don't you look into it? And I said, you know what? This is an opportunity. I'm going to look into it. So I flew in there. I started to look into the property and how we can rent it out. And the first thing I did was research. What are other companies doing? What are some of the other properties that are being rented? And the reality is that there was really nothing, because when people thought, at least back in the day, on Dominican Republic, they thought of the all-inclusive hotel. Yeah. Nobody was really going there to rent a villa. And Airbnb or all these other OTAs, they were not really happening. You could see it in the States that was already picking traction, but over there, people were afraid that they would get scammed or...
Yeah.
So what I started to look into is, let me see these other properties that are waterfront and see what the deal is. So I started door knocking, because there is not like in the States that you have like a whole MLS or you have like everything that you have access to these homes. Over there, that doesn't exist. So door knocking, reaching out to all this.
Door knocking is something, though, that reality-wise, and I have to interject with the door knocking thing, because I door knocked myself a ton. I got into Miami, and I actually, when I moved from the UK, I ended up getting married, and I lost all my money. I didn't lose my money. I actually blew my money on getting married. Spent like over $100,000. And at the time, that was a lot for me. And then I kind of ended up sucking up rentals. I had adverts running on Craigslist to try to help people get rentals, because literally no one was buying anything. It was really like, it was crushing for a little bit. It was tough, but like you learn from adversity, and you learn to find alternative solutions to problems and think of things sideways.
No, 100%. And listen, I didn't know anybody. So when I was door knocking, I was just trying to figure out what the deal was. And no owner was opening the door. It was just the gardeners, the housekeepers.
Yeah.
So what happens in those situations is that you need to have a proposal. You need to have something, a selling proposition, right? A unique selling proposition. That's what they say. So for me, it was about trying to get the business. So what's the business? Getting the property. Because, hey, at the end of the day, those properties are sitting empty. So they're getting damaged because nobody's really taking good care of them, and they're not making money with it. So at least I wanted to propose the owners that we could rent them out. So as I was able to start getting in contact with these owners through the housekeeper or whoever, they started to really like the idea, because they're not used to have somebody with a better, strong approach to tell them these things. Because the reality is that
there was no solution right now. There was nothing.
So it was interesting, because finally I started to get all these properties into our portfolio. And now I was thinking, okay, now that I have this, I need to actually rent them.
So to be clear, a lot of these people reacted and said, okay, Alvaro, great, let's rent it. What can we get? And so you started to build a portfolio through just good old fashioned sweat.
Yeah, and now it was just a matter of how would I actually rent them, because Airbnb and all these platforms were barely starting. Nobody was really using them. Social media, it could be a thing, but is really people renting through social media or a website? Is that the way to do it, and run some ads? So I started to kind of like go through multiple different angles and see which one will work best.
How long did this take, this process of you going knocking on? And how old were you at the time?
I was, 24?
Okay.
Yeah, 24.
Yeah.
And you know, the funny thing is that at that time I realized that none of that was working. So I said, man, this is discouraging. So imagine I'm in the Caribbean wearing a suit. Everybody's going on shores, vacation, pina colada.
So that's crushing, man.
And I'm on a suit trying to be the best presentable professional,
the best dressed door knocker in the history of Dominican Republic.
And listen, that made it strict by being able to get all these properties. But now, how do I actually get them rented? So I remember at that point, I said, okay, look, whatever we're doing in here, needs to be changed. So I started to look into if we are trying to get these most amazing properties of the island, because from the very beginning I said, look, it's going to take the same effort to go after the apartments than going after the most expensive and incredible villas. So may as well just go in that direction.
Well, it's good that you had that mindset, because a lot of people talk themselves out, and I see it all the time. They talk themselves out of going after big listings because they say, I don't deserve it. I'm not ready for this. I haven't earned my stripes yet to go after that. And it's the big difference between those that do and those that don't, those that succeed, is simply their mindset of like, yes, I can do this. I do deserve this. Again, you've got that athlete's mindset. So it's easier. So it's easier.
Well, look, I always do this check, right? I check and I said, okay, I put the options on the table and I say, what scares me the most? And whatever that is, I go there. And that's one of the things that I do all the time to check which direction should I go. So it's something that you need to develop over time, of course, because a lot of people
So you write that down. That's the thing that you write. Say, this is what I'm afraid of. Now I'm going to go towards that.
Of course, 100%. Yes.
It's great.
No, it's a beautiful feeling, because a lot of people think that, because I'm going to go towards something that I'm afraid, that means that I might fail. But I don't look at it as failure. I look at it as attempts. That's attempt number 1, attempt number 2. Yeah. I know for a fact that if I'm focused enough and committed enough to play this game, whatever long it's going to take me, I'm going to make it happen. So I made that choice. So I said, I'm going to make it happen. And then that's when you start being creative. So for me, I started to ask a different question. And I said, which one is the ultimate clientele that I want to work with? Now I got the properties. That's great. Yeah. Who are the clients that rent this type of properties? And who or where do they go to rent these properties? Is it a website? Is it a person? Who is it, right? So then with that research, I realized that there were already companies established where Bill Gates, Tom Cruise, and all these celebrities go to rent their villas for wherever they go. And I said, okay, let me do some research in here. And none of those companies had properties in the Dominican Republic in their portfolio. So I said, bingo, opportunity right there. So I started to grab these properties, packaging them very nicely and presenting them to these companies. And I said, listen, I would love to be your local partner. So if anybody of your clients is ever asking to go to the DR, show them these properties and we'll take care of the rest. And that's with professionalism and having everything well done and well packaged. Again, marketing background, that's what helps. Everybody should learn marketing, by the way. So with that being said, they agreed. And that's when we started to generate new leads. And when these clients were coming to the island, I all of a sudden realized, man, these are like big fishes. These are like big names.
So they said yes. So they said yes to the partnership. And then you became the partner for these big groups that represent these celebrities from around the world when they want to come to DR. Mm-hmm. And then it started. So then what happened after that? What happened next?
Well, what happened next is that we started to get clients and we started to split the benefits. We were wearing the hat of the company that was sending us the client. So we were working with multiple companies, right? All those top agencies. And as we started to work with these clients, it was an amazing experience because all of a sudden I was firsthand dealing with clients that I was dreaming of. I was like, man, this is incredible. So having to adjust and learn how to provide services of that caliber really helped me grow as a professional and at the same time understand this type of clientele better. But one of the things that I realized is that, okay, once the vacation is over, they leave and I never hear from them again. So there is one thing in common with all these different people that we call them jet setters, right? That they go to similar destinations. They go to St. Barts, they go to the DR, they go to Mykonos, south of France, Ibiza. Yeah. So I was wondering, okay, if I look at the big companies, I look at the portfolio of where they have all the destinations, and I said, this is where all these jet setters are traveling. I want to be this big company. So that was the second choice and the second step, right? It's like, okay, now the first step, the first choice of establishing this is done. What's next? I want to be the big company. So all the savings I had, I put them into traveling for 6 months and just connecting with local partners. The same way that I was a local partner for these guys, I wanted to meet the guys that were on the ground in all these different destinations because I wanted to grow our brand to an international level. Yeah. And finally, started to establish all those relationships, which, by the way, nowadays, a lot of people think, yeah, okay, you can send a message, an email, call. It's okay. It's okay. It might get you somewhere. But to be in person, sitting in front of the owner of the other company and establishing a relationship that way and introducing what you're doing and how we can build a partnership is powerful. Getting to see those properties firsthand creating content already on those properties. So we started to do that, all of that.
So when you say started to create content, and now you're talking social media content, you're talking like you would sit in front of a partner. Let's say you went to Sardinia, you know, like Cala de Volpe or Porticcevo, you know, that area up there? Very nice. Or Mykonos or any of this. So you're there and you meet a partner there and they have this amazing house. The proposition was, okay, how do you work? How do you operate? What was the approach?
No, the approach is we present ourselves as an international big company. And
so you are now like...
Now I'm the big company.
You're
Perception becomes reality, right?
Yes.
So I was going there saying, listen, I have clients that are coming to Dominican Republic and they're also going to Mykonos or whatever the destination is that I was. And I said, and they also come here. So I would love to build a partnership where we can refer you clients, because we often get clients that also travel here, which is the truth. They were like, okay, who's going to say no to leads? So I said,
of course, I was going to say
so I said, okay.
You're giving, you're not taking.
Exactly. I'm just going there with the mentality of give, give, give. Only thing I was asking is, show me your portfolio. What type of properties you have? We went to see them. I created some content. That was now part of our library. And I said, okay, send me all your listings. We will put them on our website. We will put them on our social media. And now the image that we were creating is that we were not just a company in the DR. We were an international entity that were offering villas all around these jet set locations. So it became a really beautiful thing, because now we started to get more clients to being interested, not just in the DR, but on other destinations. However, as we became a bigger company, all those leads that we were getting from these bigger companies no longer made sense because they were not working with us. So I said, okay, how can we generate our own leads? And that's when the real magic happened, because when you are playing a game that you're trying to be more innovative than anything else, ideas start flowing. And for me, it was, okay, I'm not this guy that has all the contacts in the world. I'm not doing this for 20 years plus. I'm just a guy with full of energy and with the balls to do something different. So social media started to become a really big thing, but nobody was really taking advantage of it on real estate. So the idea is, if I wanna go into these ultimate leads, whether it's these big celebrities or whatsoever, how can I get to them?
Yeah.
And I looked at who they were following. And again, I'm talking about many, many years ago. So it was easier to approach somebody on Instagram.
So let's put this into perspective so people can think about this. You're talking now, this is like 6 years ago?
Yeah, like
so
6, 5 years ago. Yeah, 6 years ago.
18,
6 years ago, yeah, exactly.
17?
Yeah.
So just before the pandemic kind of came.
Well, that's a different story, and I'll tell you how I got.
I want to see how it evolves next.
Oh
step
no, that's
from that.
beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, and that's actually how I got into real estate later on. But just so you know, in this moment of my life, the idea was to identify who they were following, and then we were looking to those individuals, and some of them were public figures. They were not even called influencers because that word didn't even exist. Yeah. So it was a matter of identifying those people, and what do? Use our properties as leverage. I didn't have millions in the bank. I could not invite people, but it's something called leverage. And leverage is something that I've always brought with me anywhere in my life, whether it was with tennis and I used tennis as leverage to teach and then open new connections, or whether it was in this case properties. So we start to invite all these individuals to stay for free at villas that were ranging from 5 to 7K a night. And how did we able to do it? It was because the owners understood, based on our proposal, that the occupancy rate was 50, 60%. So we had that 40% margin where the property was not rented. So why don't we use that as an opportunity to invite people that are of that caliber, that can create content for us, that will promote us in exchange, and that will also give us access to our ultimate clientele. So it was a beautiful partnership. That's when we started to build our ambassador program. We started to reach out to all these public figures, and we started to generate lots of exposure towards our brand.
And these ambassadors, these early influencers, if you will, would come in and they would get to stay at these incredible properties for free.
For free. In exchange.
I mean, how?
Look, I call it social currency, right?
Yeah.
They were just, instead of paying with dollars, they were paying with posting on their social media.
So rather than paying an influencer now these days, which you pay them, we know obviously locally there's a number of influencers now, and we'll be
everybody is an influencer now.
I know. I mean, there's a few that are like what I call legitimate. Like once you've got 1 million of followers or more, then you're you're there. So you kind of it's hustle. I mean, you were hustling.
Oh, it's big time.
It's
Big
great.
time,
I
big
love
time.
it. But you had certainty. You had certainty of direction, and I think you were probably enjoying the process. I mean, you've got to be on for the ride, and so you go through this, and you've got the influencers who are getting to partake and experience these amazing villas because you've got these partners who want to be part of it. You put this together. You become this conduit for all sides, and then what's the next step?
Well, the next step was to even make it bigger. So now we started to look into how can we maximize already this setup? Well, building luxury brand partnerships. So whether it's the private jet, whether it's the yacht, the luxury cars, the restaurants, anything that related to that lifestyle, we started to approach it with the same concept. It's like, look, you want to have access to this group of individuals? This is what we're bringing to the table. And we started to bring such an amazing collaboration. So collaboration is the name of the game. This is what I was like driving and going full force. And it became beautiful because we started to establish relationships with brands that, whoever was booking these guys for their private jet, they were also potential clients of ours. So we started to establish this relationship.
Contra business deals that would bounce
became
off
beautiful.
from everything.
So now the idea was, okay, the business is flowing, everything is working nicely. Now we need to change the whole entity from being in the DR to the US.
Yeah.
So I rebranded the whole business. I moved it to the States. I came back to the US with an investor visa. So that was my American Dream 2.0. And, it's one of those proud moments that I said, look, I was kicked out of the country and now I'm back in a bigger and better way. Yeah. And it was a beautiful thing because I remember in that moment, I had a conversation with my grandfather. Well, it was not my biological grandfather, but the person that was married to my grandmother for many, many years. He was a grandfather for me. And he's a very successful man and he was a visionary and has done amazing things. Unfortunately, he's not here with us anymore. But at the time when I wanted to make that decision of moving the company from the DR to the US, changing the name and kind of explaining the direction of where I was heading, he didn't say a word. He got a napkin out of his pocket, handed it to me, and that was it. The logo, Super Luxury Group. And he said,
so he gave you the name.
Go make your dreams come true. You're in the good direction. And the funny thing is that the next day I took a flight to Miami. I established the business. Everything was starting to go in that direction. I called him back, and unfortunately, he already passed away. So that was the last conversation I had with him. So
what a gift, though! What a gift! I mean, that's got to sit on you and give you some drive.
Yeah. And I've been offered a lot of money to buy the company already, and I'm not gonna do it.
Don't do it. Keep
not
it.
yet, at least.
So the process is a hell of a story. I mean, going through this. And again, this is the irony of this is that this is chapter 1.
Yeah.
I mean, this is early.
That's when it gets fun.
I mean, there's going to be more evolution as you go forward. And given the fact that, you are it is a disruptive business. You've created something that was a disruption to how business is normally operated and done because the status quo has literally been out the window. Which is great. And I think now more than ever, we're seeing systemic change through, obviously in real estate, we're seeing it in all industries, but we're seeing major change happening at lightning fast pace. As you're evolving now, so you obviously got the network. The network's, I say is built, it's building, it's growing. You've got properties, you've got jets, cars. I mean, I can imagine that anything that works within the world of the super luxury is fair game for you. What's the next? There's more goals. I'm assuming you're working on other things going on here.
Yeah, no, look, everything is an evolution, right? And I have a bigger vision of where I see myself, even up to now, where I see myself in the next 5-10 years. So it's a beautiful, exciting journey. I'm not even close to where I want to be, and that's the ambitious. But at the same time, you want to be present, you want to enjoy the journey, and you want to embrace the obstacles. So for me, one of the big obstacles that I faced through this process was, okay, now we have access to all these different real estate professionals, local partners, right, that can give us access to all these properties, including owners directly. Yeah. Then we have different partners, because at the end of the day, the luxury brands is what also was feeding our business with, as you mentioned, private jets, luxury cars, etc. And then we have our ambassador team, which is growing and evolving with all these influencers. or public figures, how we called them back then. So now is the time to make that big move. So moving back to the States, establishing the business there, starting to generate more business, injecting more marketing into it. And guess what happened? COVID, right? So when COVID happened, it was an interesting situation.
It's a blessing and a curse because it works in two directions.
It works in however you want to look at it.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, I'll tell you that my business went supersonic.
Supersonic. Exactly.
During COVID.
And this is talking about the right timing, right? Because moving the business here to Miami, and all of a sudden, because for us, it was not about selling real estate. It was about renting these luxury villas. So guess what happens? All the bookings that we had for the upcoming year and a half, even 2 years, all of a sudden, everybody's canceling everything. So we now need to get the money, give it back. So it's like, you know, not only that you're not making, you need to give back money that you already received. So with everything being on hold and no traveling happening whatsoever, then we had to make adjustments on
to pivot
the direction of the business. So being in Miami, it was, as you mentioned, a blessing for many of the brokers that were here because a lot of sales started to take place. So that's when you need to adjust quickly. You don't want to wait until everybody is already on top of it. So guess what happened there is, okay, well, we're going to shift and we're going to evolve to the sales. Now, when we focus on selling real estate, what's the first approach that at least I'm trying to look into? Which ones are the top brokers in Miami that are selling the most expensive homes? Again, same approach. In the DR, I could go for the apartments or I could go for the most amazing properties. Same thing here in Miami. It's like, okay, we're going to do sales. Let's start focusing on the most expensive and incredible homes in Miami. Now, how do we look into those? By looking into those that are selling it. So by identifying which ones were the top brokers, we then identified an opportunity, which was personal branding. They sucked. Nobody was putting attention into social media, especially on a personal level. You could see all these top brokers and you look at their own personal branding, whether it's the website, whether it's their social media, it sucked. Terrible. Nobody was putting attention in. Nobody was doing videos. Everything was about the properties. So I said, real estate in Miami, there is so much ego. Everybody's a superhero. Oh God! No, there is ego everywhere, right?
No, everyone's a top producer.
Everybody is the most
the
amazing
number
thing
one. I'm
ever.
the number one. I'm the number one in my house, my street.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, at the desk I sit on.
Everybody wants to scream whatever. If their dad gave them an award, they will scream that award. So I said, I like that. This is good. So I'm not competing against any of these guys. Now in my mind, I'm thinking I'm gonna sell also these multi-million-dollar homes, even if it's my first year, and I believed it. Now, how you believe it is by knowing that you're going to associate yourself with these top brokers. Now, how we did it was going straight to them and identifying how we could add value. For us was, okay, we have access to hundreds of influencers. We have access to all these luxury brands. We have access to an international network of clientele, of other real estate professionals. So all those international or all those things that we've already built, they did not have. Now, when you bring all of that, plus the relationships that we've already built with editors from Forbes, Rob Report, Mansion Global, TV, producers of movies, like you name it, series. We have producers from series that need to always shoot somewhere. So we had access to the entire media empire. Nobody was really having access to it. And if it was having access to it, it was more a PR agency. But coming from a real estate world, it really created that trust right away. So our approach was no longer to, we charge you this amount for having access to this. No, it was the easiest approach ever. It's like, we want to do all this for you, no cost. In exchange, we want a percentage of your commission when the property sells. And we had a commitment of 3 months. That was it. So for people, it's like, to sell it in less than 3 months? And to give you just a small percentage of my commission, and you're giving me all of this that is going to position myself like the god of real estate? Game on. Because for them, even just to get something.
Were they using it to, again, being used to actually go for listings themselves and say, hey, this is what's behind me?
Everything, yes, exactly. For getting more listings, for helping selling their listing, everything. And it was beautiful because we were controlling the narrative. So when we were getting all this news, and we were on TV or on the magazines, it was them. They were the spotlight. But our brand, myself, and Super Luxury Group, we were there. So all of a sudden now our brand is attached to the winners. So by perception, we become winners as well. So now with that material, we're able to approach other brokers to say, oh, look what we just did, and owners directly. And while we're building our brand online, then all the attention started to come our way because we had something that none of these guys had. We had like an injection of exposure. I call it attention is the strongest currency, and we had the attention.
Yeah, the digital focus that came onto Miami during COVID and as COVID was going on, and I always say post-COVID because it was post-COVID for us much earlier than it was for the rest of the country and the world, that all of a sudden we were getting the uptick. And again, like my background, as you know, I was director of marketing at IMG. Yeah. My background is marketing. My master's is economics. My degree is marketing. And my whole basis, my whole thinking is, what do people want? What do they want? What are they not getting? How can I give it to them? And how can I explain how I'm giving it to them? And then once you think of it in very simplistic terms, it all starts to fall into place. But recognizing, and again, I spent time building websites. So I'd look at the back end, I'd use all the software tools, and I was tracking using tools like SEMrush and looking at what was coming through down the pipeline. I'm like, oh my, holy crap. There is so much traction, so much inquiry, so much traffic, so much searching for certain search terms. And I'm like, this is crazy. And we during COVID, we actually put out we called it was kind of a bit cheesy, the COVID report. It was the Miami real estate report for COVID. And suddenly everyone started deciding that I guess they got to look up above the pulpit, as we say. They got to open their eyes and saying, kind of like you've had your eyes open for most of your life. I think it's fair to say you've always had this great curiosity. I'm going to say a childlike curiosity, a curiosity that every human being should have. A lot of people lose that very quickly. They lose that passion and they just accept the status quo, and they put their head down and they work on a job and they go, this kind of sucks, but I'm being paid, so I'm going to justify to myself that this is the best I can get. This is what God's given me, and it's what I have to accept, and it's not great, but it could be worse. That philosophy exists and has existed for so many people for so long in so many different ways in companies, because companies tell them, the big companies, hey, stay in your lane, do the job, don't expect too much. And they get rewarded financially, and unfortunately, financial reward after a while is not enough. You don't get up in the morning and say, yeah, I made X, Y, Z today, because it will not get you there. It will not make you happy. And then people stood up and said, you know what? This is nonsense. I'm not up for this anymore. And they suddenly looked up and saw Miami and said, that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It's better than this. This place is cold and taxes are high and I'm not having fun. And then obviously everything changed. The blew up. And of course, what do people look at? Sexy real estate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's aspirational.
And we've seen some of the shows out there that had made it even more appealing for everybody to just want to get into real estate. In fact, real estate became one of the hottest jobs that people wanted to.
It became like a celebrity. It became almost like a celebrity job.
And then the slabs came in quickly.
Yeah, as they should have done. And I think it was quite deserving that there was a lot of like correctional psychology and backlash where people said, look, hold on a minute. I'm not going to applaud you for being self-serving and telling us how wonderful and cool you are and what car you drive. And, and I think after a while, I think that's gone on for so long that I think now people are actually saying, you know what, give me substance. Give me something of real value. Don't just tell me how great you are, how cool you are. Give me something about that helps me.
It's about having that frame of thinking, okay, how can I add value? You were doing that with the reports. It was interesting. People were actually like enjoying. It's like, oh my God, this is really cool. It's about becoming an expert in your field. And this is when you have two choices, right? How do you become successful at something is by two choices. Either you become the expert, you become the most trusted source, whether it's by knowing your data and knowing everything, and that comes with time and with effort and experience, or kind of like the route that I went is, okay, I cannot cheat on that time. I cannot do all of the things that somebody like you have done, so how can I partner with you?
Yeah. Well, it's two sides of the coin, because you're a very social animal. You're a very social animal, and you're here, there, everywhere. I always joke that I'm a member. I should be president of the social antisocial club because I'm out there doing things like the podcast, and I'm doing stuff like this, and I'm social. But in my private life, I'm pretty quiet. I've got my wife, my kids. My life is not. We go on vacations, we have fun. It's great. I love to travel, but I'm not walking the red carpet anywhere. But I agree. My hat off to you. It's great that you do. And it's wonderful because that network is one of the elements that's so valuable. And again, talented Mr. Ripley, every man should not have more than one talent. My talent is analytics, being very numbers driven. I like that. I lean into that. That's something that I'm good at. And I know I can do that to a level that most people would be very uncomfortable having to do, but I can do it. Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to do it. And I like doing it. And so that knowledge is what I share with the world. You are a connector, you're a conduit, you connect people together, and that's equally valuable. Obviously, everything has its part in the business. What's great now is that it is a partnership. The whole purpose of doing this podcast is to create great partnerships with cool people so we can do cool stuff. Mm-hmm. It's really one of the best, most rewarding things when you can connect two people together and you see something magical happen. With the business now, moving forward as this last step, as you've now grown the business, where is it today? Where is it today as we sit in February 2024? You're promoting businesses through Miami, but you're promoting them also through the world as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, you travel extensively. So are you now promoting stuff in other cities as well? And what are you seeing right now?
Right. So the business has evolved to a degree where we kind of centralized ourselves in Miami during COVID and focused on the sales by doing the approach that we were previously talking about. But then from there, we realized that we can do the same thing, not just in Miami, but in other different destinations. So that same network that we've built over the years, we started to centralize it and focus it a little bit more towards just real estate. So the real estate professionals included developers, architects, interior designers, brokers, and agents. And the idea was to develop this SLG network, which is an exclusive and invite-only network where we will go and find the most successful real estate professionals in each jet-set location. So which one is the best architect in New York? Which one is the best designer in LA? Which one is the best broker in Ibiza? So putting all these people together in this network, and then what we were doing is keep on offering the same services that we were offering to the people here in Miami. So that was a really beautiful approach because we had all those connections internationally. We had influencers in all these different locations. We had all these luxury brand partnerships everywhere. And the same thing with the real estate professionals. So what happens now is we became a strong brand for the end consumer. So people that are currently looking to either buy a home, sell a home, design a home, develop a project or a home, they're coming directly to us because we are a trusted source. And the trusted source is also through the collaborations that we've been doing because we are not just saying, oh, we are the best. No, we work with the best. So I don't have the ego to say, oh, I'm the number one broker in Miami. Not at all. But I want to work with the best. And when I do that, then people come to me because they know that they're not paying premium for working with Super Luxury Group. They're going to Super Luxury Group because they know that they're going to be hand out or at least put into a system where they're going to get the best service.
Yeah, it's a network. It's a referral network. And again, that partnership is, and it's great because a lot of people do self-profess as I'm the expert. You can't be an expert at everything. It's impossible. But you can respect game and respect experts in different fields and obviously connect them accordingly. So when someone comes in, I'm just a working example so people can put this into their heads as a real world application. Someone comes in and says, your phone goes, Alvaro, I am coming into Miami. I'm looking for a $30 million home. I want to be on the water. It's a celebrity's assistant or somebody who works with them. What's the next? Is it a team that you have behind you? Like, is it a lot of people sitting in the office as different roles, and then they're kind of like, oh, okay, and then they connect it to the broker? How does it work?
Yeah, so we have, again, also real estate professionals that are asking for business. So I had a broker from London saying, hey, I have this client looking for a $35 million penthouse in Miami. Can you help? I said, absolutely. So what I did is, who do I know within our network that specializes on penthouse in that price range and work with that person. I'm not going to be the guy, and I could, by the way, I could say, okay, I take care of it. And I will look into all the penthouses knowing, okay, 3%, 5% if it's new development, I'll be good. I can put all my effort because it's a lot of money. However, I'm not trying to rechange the rules on how I'm building things. So I'd rather split a commission with somebody and know that that person is going to devote their time and experience into doing it. So I'm not saying, let me pass you to somebody. I don't do that. But what I do is I create and I say, okay, me and my partner, we're going to support with this. We create a group chat. We are already with all the agreements in place. So our team provides all the documents. And then we start working. And the person that does most of the work is the partner that we're working with, that we specifically selected because we believe that's the man or the woman for the job. And then we do the additional support on whatever is necessary.
Yeah.
But that trust came through the relationship that we've already built and through the brand that we've built.
It's much smarter. It's a much smarter way of doing this. And I think that, look, we get a lot of realtors who watch the show and people come up all the time and say, hey, I followed the podcast and, I think what you produce is great. But it's interesting that we see, for a while, realtors who would sit around and say, you know what, I'm going to take the client and I'm going to show them, but I don't know anything about the area, but I'm going to learn. I'm going to come down from Palm Beach and I'm going to sell Miami, or I'm going to come from New York. That would happen a lot. New Yorkers would say, I've got a New York license. I'm going to come down and I'm going to sell them. I'll figure it out. And I always say this is so short-sighted because you're dealing with very sophisticated people. In a heartbeat, they're going to realize in 2 seconds that you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And then they're going to go to a party, they're going to go for dinner, they're going to meet someone, and they are going to be exposed to somebody who does know what they're talking about. Yeah. They will find that top broker. Yeah. They will. They just inherently, they didn't get where they are by being stupid. And then you've lost them completely. And then you've got 100% $0 in your bank account.
And look, 50% is better than nothing. And I 100%. And I see this every day. Everybody has so much ego. They know they can do everything. Yeah. They're the best. I'm not somebody that needs to show, I closed a deal, $22 million home. In fact, the first year I ended up closing a $22 million deal. And it was amazing. And it was not something that I did by myself. I ended up doing it with somebody that I partnered up with. So he is the one that shows everywhere. I'm not even there. And I don't care because we
don't have an ego.
Because we're providing a valuable service to our client, which, by the way, that client is the one that invited me to the Oscars, and then is the guy that is providing me all these different businesses. And I think that that's what matters most, providing quality service. If you try to do it on your own and you don't have that expertise, yes, you can find out here and there, but you're not going to provide the same quality.
Yeah, be authentic. Our business is structured that we have 10 territory managers spread across 3 counties, and I'll come in and people say, well, I was up in Palm Beach yesterday, and I was like, okay, so I want to buy a new construction in Palm Beach. I'm like, well, I know it. Do I know it? No, I want to be authentic and tell you this person eats, sleeps, breathes, and lives in that neighborhood. That's who you work with. That's who will close. And we work with other brokers. The great thing about this brokerage house is that we collaborate. We collaborate and we will sit down with other top agents and we will talk and we will share. Because at the end of the day, look, having done this for so long, the money doesn't get you up in the morning. It doesn't. What gets you up is the relationships, having fun, evolving and learning, and having this desire to evolve, because that's all you've got. This has been a great story. I want to finish with, because I kind of looked into some of the stuff that you do for fun. Like personally, like your day-to-day. And I find it kind of interesting because I do some of that stuff too. And there was one, I think it was you getting, it was the sauna and the cold plunge.
Yeah.
And everyone asks, like, what are the habits of successful people? What is it that people do? What is it that you do that is part of your non-negotiables? Everyone has non-negotiables, things that you do not negotiate regardless. What does your day look like? What is the structure of your day so that in terms of like how you are, let's say, consistently persistent in your endeavors, what's that look like?
Well, it's a good question, and definitely I have a few for sure, especially in my morning routine. My girlfriend sometimes is like, I want to get out of your way until you're done with your morning routine. I don't want to be part of it because I get, it's like I become like a robot, but I know that I'm supercharging my day by doing those little things in the morning. Now, I'll tell you something just before that, because it's important that people understand that yes, you're going to be doing things in life that you're uncomfortable with, that you don't necessarily need to love. Yep. I don't do things throughout that morning routine or throughout my day that I love all the time. But for sure, I will tell you that I'm choosing to build a vehicle that allows me to live the lifestyle of my dreams. So that vehicle became SLG, became now the book, and all these things that have opened me to really live the life that I want. So when people are doing the day-to-day work or operations, get a moment to really realize, am I building that vehicle that allows me to live that lifestyle? Because if you're going to be 9 to 5 and you're going to then given a few extra hours to do what you actually love doing, then you're wasting your time. And the fact is that, yes, throughout the day, I might be doing a couple things here and there that I might not enjoy fully, but I know that is part of the process of going to where I'm going. And I got to be honest with you, I don't enjoy going every single day to show houses. So why would I do it if I can do something different that is going to provide even more value? Yeah. So for me, I wake up and I said, listen, I'm blessed. What are the 3 things I'm grateful for? So that's my non-negotiable. In fact, I start my morning routine the night before, right? I count my things I'm grateful for that happen during the day. I review my goals, make sure that all the goals are scheduled, because if it's not scheduled, it's not going to happen. So I always make sure it's scheduled. I review all the things that happen throughout the day, analyze, improve. It's about self-improvement, right? How can you get better? And then in the morning, again, non-negotiable. 3 things I'm grateful for. Go over my vision board. I do like a movie. And this is something that I get pictures of the things that I envision. I record my voice talking about my vision as if it's already happening. And then I put a background sound that represents the sounds of each one of the things that I'm showing. So it's like a movie. And I watch that.
Like self-hypnotizing yourself, basically.
Well, I believe in the law of attraction, manifestation, whatever people want to say it. But I think that everything happens twice, first in your mind and then in reality. So I want to make sure that I'm tuning in to really the direction that I want to go. And then I back it up by going through my why. Why am I really wanting to live that life? And when I go through my why, it gives me goosebumps. A lot of people just ask themselves that question and they keep it very in the surface level. I try to go to a point where I get the goosebumps. I'm like, this is a strong why.
Yeah, so, and that triggers you to say, I know I'm on the right course now. Because
this is like, boom, non-negotiable. After I go through my values, make sure that, okay, I understand my values. I understand really the direction that I want to go and how I want to go. And after the values, I go through my wheel of life and make sure that I'm balanced. And I review all the different routines and habits that I want to make sure that I keep on implementing, keep on adding into my life. I do the breath work in the morning. I do some breath work with a machine just to expand my lungs, make it harder, right? Yeah. I do, I use some glasses for the circadian rhythm. I do the hot water with lemon and ginger and cayenne and all that stuff. Yeah. So I do that. Then I do some power push-ups. Then I go to work out. No negotiable in the morning. I do workout. I try to do cardio only in the mornings just because I believe that it gives me that fresh mind, and I go either for a 10-mile run, a half marathon, a marathon.
That's
Monday.
it, 10-mile run?
Well, I mean, Mondays I do marathon Mondays, which is fun. That's
marathon Mondays, really?
All the time, yeah.
Jesus, you're making everyone else look bad.
No, but I'm saying like it's no negotiables in the morning to do that part of the cardio, because I either use that time to listen to an audiobook or podcast or nothing at all. I just go with my own thoughts, right? Then after that, I go to the sauna, infrared sauna. I stretch for 15 minutes while I'm in the sauna. Then I jump on the cold plunge. After the cold plunge, 5 minutes, I will say, at 40 degrees more or less. That's enough for me. I'm good. After that, I do my smoothie, my tea. And while I'm doing that, I get into my focus mode of finishing the routine by taking 10 minutes to go through a list of people that I want to be sending a gratitude message for. So again, this is not something that I'm picking and choosing. I just literally go through the list and I start going. And I either send a voice note or a message or a selfie video. And it's like having a gift and not giving it to somebody, right? So if I'm feeling grateful for somebody, I want to say that to that person.
People rarely do that. That's actually really perceptive, because again, how it makes the people feel that you're touching. And there's so many things that we say, I felt it, but I never told them. Yeah. I never let them know. As in our life, when we lose people, sadly, one of the biggest regrets is always saying, I wish I'd said this or I'd done that. And the fact that you're actually making this part of your daily habit means that you're not waiting for, the end before you start doing these things. You're doing it right now at this moment. And it's really touching. It's very powerful. But clearly, I mean, your discipline, discipline has a lot to do with the habits. Your habits that you have, clearly you have this very clear mindset, military style mindset of go in and go through this, and obviously it's good for you. I do the same thing. I mean, I have non-negotiables, much like you, and very similar. Actually, I won't bore you with the details, but it's very similar. And I go through process, and I think if this is the hardest thing, especially when I'm working out, if this is the hardest thing that I'm doing today, everything else is easy after this. It's a piece of cake.
Oh, 100%. And that's how the joke started with the Marathon Mondays. I said, if I do a marathon starting on a Monday, and everything else is going to be a piece
the
of
week
cake.
is a walk in the park.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk to you forever. This is great. I mean, it's an interesting story. It's different. You're clearly a human being on the process of growth and of evolution and involvement. And it's not about you. I realized that meeting you and talking to you, it's not about being self-serving. It's more about what you can give. And obviously, you know, the classic adage that we've been taught for thousands of years, but we don't learn till later on in life, is the more you give, the more you get back.
Yeah.
This is wonderful. Alvaro, thank you for doing this. We will talk again. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Hope you enjoyed this. Look up Alvaro. I'm sure you know him already. A very interesting guy. Great book. Read Level Up if you haven't.
Level Up.
And thank you for watching. This has been a great day. Stay tuned next time for another David Siddons Group podcast. Thanks for watching. Thank you.